Ladies and gentlemen, I promise you this will be going to be worth staying tuned, I should say. It's time now for a CFO panel discussion that will be focused on building financial resiliency, reducing cost, and maximizing the returns. The touch points of the discussion is of course going to be on role of IT in bridging the gap between finance and operations, a hot topic that we keep talking about, right? The need for agility, using data for augmenting businesses, understanding data and BI across functions, and of course, the digital upskilling that we're all undergoing already. So please help me welcome our dutiful, seasoned panelists. Please allow me to welcome Srinivas Palakodeti, Global Chief Financial Officer from Hinduja Global Solutions. Well, we'll also be joined by the very seasoned Jayaprakash Kalappan, the Chief Financial Officer and Company Secretary from Panasonic Appliances India. With that, Vijay Vaishnav, the Chief Financial Officer from Eros Now, would also be taking up the screen in some time from now. Let's also welcome Sambasivan G, the Chief Financial Officer, Tata Sky. This is going to be a riveting discussion, ladies and gentlemen. Give it up further to also welcome Saloni Ganesh, the Chief Financial Officer from Kolkata Knight Riders. Let's also welcome Sandhya Sharma, the lady there, the Chief Financial Officer from Schindler, India. And with that, let's also welcome Raghavendra Pai, the Chief Financial Officer, Cloud and Cognitive from IBM India. Well, the session chair, ladies and gentlemen, we all need to also welcome Harpreet Singh, the partner and leader, Risk Assurance Services, PwC India. Well, we're all set to submit ourselves to your moderatorship. Harpreet, it's over to you.
Yeah, thanks. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to this panel discussion today. We have a highly distinguished panel representing a variety of industries, and I'm looking forward to an engaging panel discussion. The topic for today's discussion is financial resilience, reducing costs and maximizing returns. Before I jump into the panel discussion, let me set the context. COVID-19 pandemic has pretty much disrupted all business operations. No company's risk register had a pandemic listed in that as a risk by COVID-19 and maximizing returns. Before I jump into the panel discussion, let me set the context. COVID-19 pandemic has pretty much disrupted all business operations. So no business continuity plan or disaster recovery plan ever envisaged that the business operations of the company would be shut and completely, and that too for months. In the last 12 to 14 months, we have seen all of this. In the initial period of the pandemic, companies went into a survival mode. Cost containment was a buzzword. Companies were wanting to become leaner. They were wanting to eliminate discretionary spend. As things stabilized, newer business models started emerging. Companies realized that customer preferences are changing. Customers are not willing to come to their stores because of the fear of the pandemic, and companies had to reach out to them. This was the time when companies started embracing digital channels, and digital became the talk of the town. While companies were dealing with disruption, there were challenges around people front which arose. Employee health and safety became a matter of concern. Employee morale also was one of the areas to be looked at. Workforce had to be digitally upskilled for the new world, the post-pandemic world. Remote working became the norm, and data privacy and cybersecurity were the matters of concern which companies were dealing with. So in today's panel discussion, we will look at some of the challenges which companies faced and how finance teams, finance functions transformed themselves to become strategic partners of the business during the period of disruption. as we come out of this pandemic, companies are leaner, they're smarter, they're agile. Digital has become part of their DNA. They have shed debt. Their profitability parameters have improved, and they are now looking at the opportunities in the post-pandemic world. So, with that kind of backdrop, I think this panel discussion is really timely. And let me start this discussion by first asking Jayaprakash. Jayaprakash, your company, Panasonic, must have seen significant disruption because of the pandemic. So how did you, as a CFO of the company, help your company navigate through this change or through this disruption phase? And how did you reorient your finance function to become a business partner?
Good morning to all. Thank you, Harbit. This is a well articulated question because after 2020 March, so once the MHA announced the lockdown, so everyone got struck. Okay, so especially when we got the information from the MHA for the lockdown, so we met all the management team in our office. So first we discussed about the instead of talking about the how the revenue can be generated or how the sales can be met. So we rather than discuss only on the how to control the cost, so how to protect our people. So this is the two things come to our mind. So with that we start our discussion. Many things we could be able to get the solution on that. The first one is that the instability in the business. So once the lockdown happened, because that also year-end closure. So we being the subsidiary to the Panasonic Corporation Japan, so we have some commitment to the our group companies. We should target our some top line as well as bottom line. So we could not be able to achieve any sales, especially for the last 2 weeks of the year end, that is March 1920. So the instability business happened due to this, and we start the budget, start with as a zero base, as a scratch. So this happened for the FY 2021. We start our budget things, how we can meet it. Secondly, also we have engaged the more people, more channel partner, like through the e-commerce business, either through Amazon or Flipkart or CloudTile. So which support of the business enhancement, which yield some decent profit. Also, we made the level-wise countermeasure of the how to control the cost or the how to deferment of the cost or how to minimize the cost. So we have made the several options. So how to defer it, minimize it, and cut it. So defer it means some of the travel expenses and the salary deduction, something we have made. Also the non-working days. So because we have given the 1st April, May, June, there are almost 45 days we lost in manpower and the production. So how these days can be used for the future requirement. So we have convert this into the overtime. So that means the number of days they have not worked. So we have added to the production side to make it as a overtime thing, so that they without paying any cost. So we have made this overtime stability. Also the cut of the cost, particularly for the non-essential items. So these are the something we can able to make in the how to stabilize the business. The second part is that the collection of the receivables. So this is a major part we struggle as a CFO. The cash requirements is one of the major part. So we have about 500 plus distributors and dealers in Pan India. So the collection got struck, even especially from the trade side. So what we did is that we given some more extended credit terms to the customers with some cash discount, so that the collection can be made it as quick. Also, whenever we have the company have the policy like if they are paying the delay amount, they have to pay the interest. So we weigh up the delay, we weigh up the interest cost also, so that will help us to the customer have the some kind of the comfortness, so that they can be able to give back our money. So, but we can be able to get it. Also, there was some cases like that, the warranty period, that also we extended, so that the customer can, the end customer, I'm talking about secondary sales customers, can able to make it. Also, we have increased our working capital facilities because of the non-collection of things. So we have made the one special board meeting in the month of May, the yearly first week, so that the enhancement of the credit limit also being enhanced. The third part will be the we face the logistic issue because especially for the export business, we cannot able to get the container on time. So in that we have encouraged our CHA to give their container, and we have altered their container in our factory. Though we are paying the small amount of the halting charges, that will help us to do our export business. So this is a few things we do. Then another thing is that interest cost. So we have negotiated with our banker to give the competitive rate of interest rate. Also, we optimize our the loan utilization, so which help us to the control our interest cost. Also, you see that during that period, pandemic period, even banker also have the same challenge to come down to their office and operating from home, because unlike that the corporate field, they cannot work from home because they should have some special server and access to be given. So the banker also supported very well during this period. Then also we made the some capex investment like deferring to or postponed to the next financial year, which is not necessary at this point in time. So this also we have made. The other last one is that the working from home. So it is actually unexperienced new normal in the factory atmosphere, because the people used to come to factory and do the things. But this is unexperienced people not having such kind of the experience earlier. But initially they were struggled to make it. But now it's more than the 50% of our people still working from home with the comfort zone. So these are things happen in Panasonic during pandemic period. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Jayaprakash. I think focus on cost and people was what most of the companies did in the initial phase of the pandemic. So thank you very much. Let me now go to Sambasivan. Sambasivan, Tata Sky, for your company, in some sense, this was also an opportunity. People were sitting at home and watching more content and wanting to see more. So how did you respond to that? And also, if you could touch upon how did you transform your finance function to the changing needs of your business?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, everybody, thanks Harpreet for this question, and thanks for this opportunity. For Tata Sky, yes, it was a good opportunity for growing the business. So when the lockdown happened, a lot of people stayed at home. So a lot of people started watching more television channels, and therefore our viewership did go up in the first few months. But that later on fizzled out because of absence of new content. So yes, we had a spike in the first quarter of last financial year, but later on it started coming down since the content was not there. How did finance respond? So finance, actually, our company in finance, we were actually on a transformation journey for the previous 7 years. So I joined this company in 2013, and we were on what we call as a digital transformation journey for the previous 7 years. So when actually the pandemic happened, it was a test for us whether we were ready for this pandemic. And happy to share that yes, we were ready, because overnight a decision was taken to work from home. 100% of the people were asked to work from home from day one. And actually for the first few days, I was expecting a lot of chaos in the way things work, but actually there was no escalation, which was very surprising to me, in the sense that we were kind of ready for this scenario, and therefore we did not even raise an alarm internally. So much so that the financials audit was completed on time. For example, we were ready by 8th of April with the audited accounts, which was our goal initially, even without knowing about the pandemic. And we were still ready with that. And this year we have actually completed. And it was a different matter. Last year, we did not have the board meeting on the original date. That was not due to the audit non-readiness. It was due to the fact that the board was not ready to sit together in a place and approve the accounts. They said, okay, let us wait for some more time and let's have a board meeting later. So which all tells me that the organization was pleasantly prepared fully, particularly the finance organization, for this kind of a pandemic. So if you ask me, was there a chaos? No. But yes, there was a chaos from the customer operations perspective, because most of our call centers had a major impact, because we have over 3 to 4,000 people who are working as partners. They receive and make calls to our customers. We got all our millions of customers. There's more than a few lakh calls which come to us every day, and which we also make to the customers on a daily basis. So those people who are managing them had to work from home. So it took some time for us to make sure that the necessary infrastructure was made available at the partner's end, so that they could start receiving and making the calls. That took us a while, maybe about 40-45 days. So we had a hit in the abandon rate. We had our service parameters impacted for that initial period, but we quickly came back over the next 6 weeks. So in summary, we were kind of ready for digital transformation, and this has also given us an opportunity on what next we can do. So we have worked a lot more on artificial intelligence, machine learning, RPA during this last 1 year, to make sure that even more we are actually equipped to handle such a scenario. And I can also say that the productivity of the team across the organization, and particularly in finance, had really gone up over this period. Yes, there was a fatigue factor in the first few months, but we brought in some employee-friendly measures so that there is not much of a fatigue in terms of not having meetings beyond a certain time and everything. So there was an overall transformation, I would say, which has happened in the last 1.5 years. We are still working from home, and we believe that the finance team at least can continue to work from home in the foreseeable future and deliver better results than what it used to give, even without going to office, which is where I will stop. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Vasivan, and I think would agree with you. Finance functions were always on a transformation journey, moving from a controllership function to a digitally enabled strategic business partner. And I think this pandemic has just accelerated that change. So let me now go to Vijay. Vijay, you come from an OTT player, right? And I think the subscription levels have gone up during the pandemic. I think I myself I've subscribed to pretty much every OTT app which is out there. So how have you looked at the pandemic from your business standpoint, and what kind of changes you brought in your finance function to navigate this challenge?
So think digital, hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me on this wonderful panel. So yes, as rightly mentioned, it was blessing in disguise for, OTT business in media and entertainment. We were expecting a complete jump, of viewership in next 2-3 years. But this pandemic, helped to get that transformation in media and entertainment onto OTT much quicker. Yeah. So, what has happened is that for us, definitely this has been a phase where we've been able to see an uptick in terms of subscription, watch hours. So, the server cost, everything, obviously was managed in a way. From a finance function, I would rather want to, press upon this fact that we all have seen, right? The CFO role has changed from, simply accounting and compliance to business partnering. So CFO now acts as a co-CEO, because, the business responsibility is shared. So now since CFO role has changed, the finance team too has to undergo the change, in terms of the approach. So, real-time data, automation is something that, I have adopted. And being in this OTT and digital space for almost last 5 years, this was already, imbibed in, me and my team. So we were always thinking of, work from home, getting digital. So all this was there pre-pandemic, and pandemic only, vouched for those kind of, working style. So what pandemic actually taught us, so pandemic just reassured the style of working which finance function of any tech or digital company had adopted pre-pandemic. They were using tools, they were, using those processes which were, were making sure that no manual errors are there, making sure that dependency on, a person is lower, and having an analytical mind is more. So work, can happen without people coming to office. So virtual is real, and digital obviously is the way forward. So what changes did we get? We, first of all, the mindset change is something that, we got, from traditional to digital, learning new tools, thinking automation. So what we did was that we automated, mundane, long processes. The three benefits to this, automation was that we could get data quickly and real time, and avoiding manual error. So, it was a error-free data to us, basis which, we could, do a actionable items was detected, and we could make those changes at the right time to avoid any future losses or anything of that sort. So conducting continuous monitoring of business performance through real-time financial reporting and exceptional flagging was possible only because of those kind of tools that we implemented. We drove top line value in terms of intelligent automation, giving finance access to ever-rich pool of data, and frees up the resources previously deployed in repetitive processing. So basically what has happened is that earlier the traditional finance used to be occupied only in making the data. Nowadays, tools have come to make that data. Now the finance team has to analyze that data. So an analytical mind is the key, which we got it in our team. And this was not only post-pandemic, it was pre-pandemic too. So my 80% of my team is having more analytical mind. They only analyze the data and give valuable input. I personally have, taken up this challenge and been there for almost 5-6 years, that finance function has to be a separate profit center, a separate cost center, to ensure that there is an ROI concept over there too, like we do it for other departments. So basically what happens is that the key benefit for intelligent automation tools for many in those is that finance gets an opportunity to embrace transformation in a more iterative fashion. So while replacing large legacy technology solutions, require substantial investment that can be only justified periodically. However, the cost of individual automation tool is very low. And this in turn, enables finance to continuously experiment with new solution, optimizing the mix of, the tools over time according to the results. So to be honest, we are considering limiting our investment in our current ERP so that, it becomes more a basic database. If we can get the integration right, we will do everything else outside the ERP, switching it tool and out at the will. So that is something that is the approach that we in an OTT company been following from last 5-6 years.
Great, thanks Vijay. I think quite a few new ideas. Finance as a profit center, return on capital employed in finance. I think these are all transformational themes which are running across finance functions today. And I agree with you that data analytics is really transforming the game. It is really helping companies interpret data in a meaningful manner and helping them in decision making. I think we will explore some of these in the subsequent sessions of this panel. So thanks, Vijay. And I think so let me now slightly shift gears. We have looked at the challenges which companies faced during the pandemic, how they responded to it, how finance function responded to it. Now let's talk about digital, right? And finance functions were always, or I would say prior to the pandemic, they were in a digital transformation mode, right? They were moving away from, as Vijay mentioned, from a traditional bookkeeping compliance function to a more business partner role. And what pandemic has done is that pandemic has really accelerated the pace of digitalization. So let me come to Raghavendra. Raghavendra, if you could share with us, your digital journey within IBM, being a leading technology player, and also as you touch upon that, if you could share with us a little bit about cloud adoption, which you're now seeing, because I think that's again after the pandemic, at least what we are seeing is that cloud adoption is exploding because people want 24/7 availability, and which is much easier in a cloud environment. And also maybe it's slightly longish ask, but talk about some of your customers, how they are responding to this. So Raghavendra, if you could talk about some of these things.
Hey, thanks Harpreet, and thanks a lot for inviting me to this panel discussion. Am I audible, Harpreet?
Yeah, you are absolutely.
Yeah, great. So thanks a lot. And okay, IBM always has been a digital company inwards, and the thought leadership at a CEO level at worldwide was that we have to be a data as well as a hybrid company for ourselves as well as the customers. So as far as IBM is concerned, we were already experimenting with all of these ERP solutions for the past 2 3 years, and the best part was we were in a finance angle, we were on transformation for a lot of years now, and it was picking up pace as in 2020 beginning, but pandemic really fast tracked it. And that was true for all other companies as well, in the sense that people are moving to digital or cloud or a work from home model or a remote model, but they were moving at a slow pace. But pandemic actually made them think to do it at a faster way and a much accelerated way. Okay, so more of thing of like how IBM did, I would want to give some kind of a customer sense, right? Like one of a leading FMCG brand, and it was a very interesting case when I was going through the approval metrics and what this deal was, etc., etc., right? And how it was value for IBM as well as the company, right? So what happened was this was an FMCG company, and it was working on a traditional model where everything was on an Excel based, top down collation of large amount of data, SQLs, distributor wise, region wise, product wise, and you can imagine the how huge the data is, right? It is real big data, right? And over that, the cash cycle, the forecast cycle was crunched up. They had to collate all this data, put together in a format, then send it to the a person who should then look at the trends, put together his thoughts, then send it upwards. The top leadership team would look at it, align it to their business priorities, then it would come downwards, and then again it would go to operations, check with them whether it's happening or not, etc. And that whole thing, right, the whole rigmarole, what I would want to say, took approximately 4 hours just to collate the data, then additional hours of coming back, reiteration, etc., etc. And one other problem was the compute capacity, right? With this big data, the compute capacity in a traditional system is very less, and it used to take time, right? So what we looked at it data, we had our own experience in IBM where we were managing such amount of data. Being a IT company, we had products, right, like which were huge amount of products. We are processing already that data in our internal system. So we tried implementing some of those, right? And what we did was, first thing is we tried moving them into a cloud model where the compute capacity was large, flexible. They could switch on and off the compute capacity. They could increase the cost, decrease the cost, whichever way they wanted. So fun thing was the compute capacity was solved. Second important thing was we had some solutions which were already pre-designed, and you did not have to be a data scientist as such, right? Like where you have to write an RPA, you have to look at the parameters, write the SQL codes, etc., etc. These were already there, and these were self, what do you call it, self, they used to teach you to see how the data is working. It is not like you have to tell it like, okay, I want to see this Y2Y of this SQ, I want to see the Y2Y of the region. The tool itself used to tell you, okay, this is one of the parameters. Hey, Mr. Data provider, you might have overlooked. Have a look at this. So those were the tools, and these tools would give you initial level of data where you used to say, okay, a modeling kind of a sense, like, okay, Mr. User, this is the data you've given. This is the initial modeling that you have. Does it gel with you? And with that, and that 4 hours of data collation was hardly reduced to 30 minutes. And the guy who was actually preparing the data can spend the rest 3.5 hours, right? Like Vijay said, on meaningful interpretation of the data and doing that high level work, right? And giving that suggestion to the top level management, saying, okay, sirs, these are the data, this is what I see as a trend, this is what is suggested by the ARP solution, and this is what I feel is the right way of a product mix or a GP mix, or as good as how to drive a sales behavior by setting a particular quota and driving the margin of a product, right? All those things. And the another best part was, Harpreet, that these tools also provide that infographic kind of outputs, right? When you present to a top level land management, you do not want to go to them with a Excel sheet or a plethora of numbers. You would want to show important things, 2 or 3 pointers in one slide with a proper infographic kind of a tool. So that helped. So that actually was a wonderful thing for that company, and that's an experience for me. That's how the data, the tools that are there, the AI actually transformed, and how cloud has increased the flexibility and the scalability for a company, Harpreet. during these
Great.
times.
So thanks, Raghavendra. I think this is a wonderful example, and I agree with you. Cloud adoption, whatsoever hesitancy people had, I think that has just gone out of the window with the pandemic, and also people wanting to cut down on capex. We are only seeing that going up. So that was really helpful. Let me now move to Sandhya. Sandhya, you come from a very different, background from a company perspective, traditional brick and mortar business. And I think clearly your businesses were hit significantly because of the pandemic. How did you went about transforming your finance function with the focus on digital during this pandemic phase, and some learnings if you could share with the audience?
Sure. Thank you, Harpreet, and thank you everyone for having me here. I would say digitization overall forms a big part of our strategy house, not only from the organization's point of view, but also from the finance function point of view. From the organization's point of view, I see digitization is impacting the product. Definitely, it has to be. So all our units are now coming with a connected units. So I can know the health of an elevator or an escalator sitting in the office. I don't need to physically visit that. That's the kind of product digitization which is going on. Now you can see an advertisement on an elevator door while waiting for it. So yes, these also bring a lot of challenges on the finance function in terms of the agility that we need in processing the new businesses. From process side, I would say, especially in finance, what we did was we designed the ecosystem that we want to impact. And thankfully, the group has been working on digitization since 2016 for us. So it was quite easy for us to sail through. Like we have ReadSoft implemented, we have for AP, we have High Radius implemented for AR, we have Concur for employee MER or the monthly reimbursements that they can have. We usually in the first phase did a bit of fragmented approach in terms of ensuring that every bit is covered by the digitization milestone. What our next focus is on two things. One is bringing everything on single sign-on, because somewhere in the development stage, everything comes up with a unique and enter your password and user ID and everything. So that's the first part that we are working on. Along with that, we are working on the whole piece of MIS. And although it may look very similar, an elevator may look like an elevator for all, not very different. But for us, every elevator is unique. It is not a plug-in item like I can just remove an elevator cart and put it otherwise. So MIS is very important for us, and especially with the new age customer requirements that we have a huge user base, I would say. Even if the customer base is smaller, the user base is high. So from that perspective, we are focusing on Power BI, how we can ensure, like Raghavendra mentioned, infographics is the thing which everyone likes to. I would say how it helps is put enormous data into a single chart and helps us kind of assimilate it better. So and especially Power BI from the purpose that there should be a single source of truth. Like again, Raghavendra, to note, we have multiple Excel sheets otherwise, and then at times I remember 10 years back when I used to be in MIS, some of the Excel sheet number wouldn't match with the other one. Very typical early days when we started, but I think so. The purpose is that from the source of truth, we can have most of our MISs. So I would say for us, thankfully we had early adoption of the whole digitization process. So it helped us from efficacy point of view, both improving accuracy and efficiency. And currently for us, the focus is more on value-added Power BI reports and ensuring that we are on single sign-ons. Thanks, sir.
Great. Thanks, Sandhya. This was really helpful, and you're right. It's important to first get the basics right, and then you build onto that. So let me now come to Pala. Pala, if you could share with us a little bit about your digital journey during the last couple of years, including the pandemic, and also maybe it would be interesting to hear from you as a BPM company. What are you seeing in your clients? So, Pala, over to you.
Thank you. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
Thank you, Harpreet. Thank you for inviting me for this panel discussion. As you mentioned, we are a business process management company. We do listed company. While at one level, there's, as most panelist members have mentioned, we have ongoing journey on digitization. So we have adopted digital boards for board meetings. So all the material goes into a digital boardroom. Obviously, board meetings have been virtual. It cuts down the paper travel, so there are savings. There are also, we are using tools for like Power BI for taking enterprise view of accounts, because we have accounts being serviced from different geographies. The traditional view was to see what each geography is generating. We would rather take an overall view sitting at a corporate office in terms of what is the overall performance of a particular account. Our appraisal systems have become digital, and because of the sheer numbers involved, obviously it's a guided process. So we have everything now on a cloud. So no paper-based appraisals for at least the mid to senior level positions. We've also done the entire budgeting as a digital tool. So no more Excel sheets. Everything is through a cloud-based solution. And so sitting here, we can manage look at how the budget is shaping up. And we are now extending the same tool for forecasting. Being a listed company, we need to know or at least meet the expectations of investors, analysts, how we are doing. I want to spend a couple of minutes on a couple of other aspects which are more business related and specific to our industry. Obviously, being in the BPM industry, we hire a large number of people. So even in the worst of the crisis, even if it's not growth, just to backfill attrition, we have to hire. The traditional model is, somebody comes, shows up to our offices, he gets interviewed for whatever the skill sets we are looking at, and then, he collects his appointment letter and goes. Okay, we've been trying to hasten that process, but sometimes it does take a day looking at the sheer number of people we hire. Now, that's easier in a normal brick and mortar environment because people are used to coming to office. Now, but as we go into work from home, how do you do this? Because you can't expect a person to join, even if you do want to interview somebody on Teams or Zoom, he is not going to hang around for a whole day or do multiple logins and log out just to complete the whole process. So while on one side we did build, everybody is used to seeing bots for customer interaction, and you look at self-service chat from a customer point of view. We actually extend this further to make it what we call a recruitment bot, and this is especially useful in our countries like US and Canada, where the catchment area is huge and people want to recruit from you can recruit people from different states because everybody is working from home. But you may have a preference where you want to recruit from, right? Some of it could be regulatory because we do a lot of healthcare and there are restrictions on who does which work. Or it could be have different wages. You may prefer to hire somebody from a lower cost structure. So the entire process of recruitment became digitized. So he logs in, We apply filters whether we need people from those states, and then we are able to complete. There are some online tests taken. If any credentials have to verify, those are done. And what would take about a day or two, the entire process can be shrunk to 2 or 3 hours, complete from the scanning, testing, interviewing, as well as the issuing him an appointment letter. So obviously that's helped the huge employee experience. And we've often struggled to hire in markets like US for sometimes at least in the initial period of the pandemic. The doles given by the US federal and state governments were actually higher than the salaries we would be offering, right? So you need to at least give them a better experience so that they stay. The plus on the other side, of course, customers are asking for more and more digital experiences. So we do a lot more on social care in terms of what is the customer saying, brand management. One is to have a customer who's angry to call a center and agent and give his, vent his anger. Other is to just put it on Facebook or Twitter and it gets picked up. So you have to do a lot of online reputation management, especially when everybody's sitting at home. Like other things, we've also been moving more and more to the cloud, and here sometimes is the challenge, right? If you have old traditional infrastructure that is all, it's a capex infrastructure, especially on the telephony side. When you look at the business case, whenever you look at cloud, on the face of it, it always looks more expensive. So do you put on a pure finance function and say, I'm not going in for a higher cost option? Or dig diver and see what are the other benefits. Sometimes they are very tangible, sometimes they are not. For instance, if you go into the cloud, you need the same number of people supporting the infrastructure, the repairs, maintenance, that part of it. But more importantly, once you go to the cloud, it actually gives you a lot more flexibility in terms of what you're doing. Because you are paying per minute, per transaction. You have the ability to pick up short-term projects, deal with seasonal volumes, and you have a lot more flexibility. And once the other part is every client wants obviously a cost control, cost reduction. And once you are on the cloud, you are able to build tools and use them for optimizing the processes and doing some kind of a gain share, whatever be your model. So you, as finance function, you need to look beyond, okay, I'm spending $100 now. Why should I spend 110, 120? Or look beyond, is it really 120 or 70, 80? It requires a different perspective, the way you need to look at these business cases. And how do you support the business or be a good partner? So it needs to take a deeper view, longer view, and a different perspective. One of the other things which we've also done, coming back to data, obviously we deal with a huge amount of data in terms of, employee costs, other operational costs, costs of operations, and also the whole lot of reporting which our clients want. A lot of it was in the past, somebody has to create a report. Numbers may not tally, create an Excel file, maybe beautify it, and then send it out to the client. So it's all driven by that. What we have done is built a in-house portal. It's not a portal which is to the customers, but obviously with restricted access. And give them the ability to download their reports. Right? It's like today we go to a bank. We don't need to go to the bank. We download a bank statement or read it. It's something similar. So we have reports for the clients to download. So that's made reporting and other aspects easier from a customer satisfaction point of view. And also we've now built a portal with all our analytics. To run the analytics are our own internal data, whether it's employee cost, cost of operations. So that's the other thing we have done in terms of managing, creating a huge data warehouse and making the access and analysis more meaningful. Thanks, Harpreet. I hope I didn't overshoot in terms of time.
No, I think that was really helpful, Bala. Sorry, Bala, sharing your digital journey with us and some of the initiatives which you are running along with your customers. So thanks a lot. And let me slightly shift gears now and talk about people, right? And as they say, culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? And people help build the culture of an organization. And I think there have been significant challenges as far as people are concerned in the last year or so. Employee morale, employee health and safety, and above all, digital upskilling. I think that has become extremely critical. So, Saloni, you, Kolkata Knight Riders, very exciting business. So, we want to share how you handle the people challenge as far as your business was concerned, and how did you help your people digitally upskill during this pandemic phase?
Thanks, Harpreet, for this opportunity. Well, people are indeed at the center of any organization, and we have been using a lot of the data that flows through our system to ensure that we can assist each of these people to perform and specialize in their respective field. So in terms, data today in today's time is indeed pure gold, and can give us some striking insights into the business of sports management in terms of assessing a player's performance, in terms of assessing a team's profitability. So when you talk about people and putting them at the center of how to improvise their respective skill sets, so we came up with a plan in which data can be actually used for a lot of strategic planning around getting the right skill set of people and increasing their performance measures as well. So particularly in a sports franchise, data is being used right from devising a strategy around which players to pick and at what values by applying a traditional money ball strategy, in which you determine the hidden value of the players so that you know at what price bandwidth they can be picked at an auction. We use data for customizing coaching plan, which again caters to individual needs, and it is also used for pricing of match tickets. We determine how to accelerate the growth of a team's fan base. Fan base is the center of any sports franchise. Again, something that we work on to engage with a higher fan base audience, and also how to assess the target audience in order to market the team's merchandise and create more interactive content, because at the end of the day, it is the spectators, it is the viewers who watch the game. They themselves are the driving force behind the sport itself. So in terms of coming back to your question of how in the times of pandemic, how did we re-energize and invent our teams to perform better? And in that context, I would say that we ensure that each of our team members optimizesly utilize their time in delivering the desired results. As a finance professional, it is always advisable to be proactive in building your financial model in collaboration with other stakeholders rather than doing number crunching in isolation. Another important skill set is also to ensure a robust controllership function, because especially in times like these, when you want every dollar to deliver the value in the way we do the function. Also, another important skill set that we did focus on when it came to our people is to ensure that the approach towards analyzing data. You see, data is raw, unorganized facts, which need to be processed and put in an organized, structured format to have any meaningful, useful information. And hence, we put our people through the training of being more meticulous, diligent, and inherently curious by sharpening their research skills. Another important skill set is the ability to see through the clutter of data, because data is a vast ocean and there is always a likelihood of people getting lost, figuring out what it is. So to really pivot on the core issue so that you focus your time and your efforts in analyzing data, which can have some meaningful analysis and can be used for strategic decision making and revenue optimization. So coming back to the kind of skill sets we've deployed in people that could also take a turn of making them more tech savvy, getting them to get comfortable with numbers so that they know exactly what is expected out of them and hence deliver the right kind of analysis. And last but not the least, as they say, continuous learning is the minimum requirement for success in any field. And hence, we always encourage our employees to keep learning and never stop the process. Thanks.
Yeah, no, thanks, Saloni. This was really helpful. How you used data for your decision-making process, and also the upskilling part of people which you spoke about. Let me come to Vijay. Vijay, you also kind of alluded to this aspect of upskilling of people, right? Can you elaborate more how you went about that in your organization?
Yeah. So, earlier, as I mentioned, value add is something which is expected from every individual. So what we did was that, like, for example, a person doing BRS will now that work will be done by a tool. Now the BRS, once that tool, gives that data to that person, the person has to use their analytical mind and try to understand and give meat out of that. So it's not a proper, a plain vanilla BRS making person. That person now becomes a more analytical in a way to understand what this BRS is all about and what important and valuable data that he can generate. So that is some mindset change that we got at every level in our department. Similarly, there are tools which are currently helping us do the GST compliance before making vendor payments. So all those things which individual were doing themselves, it has been replaced by a tool. So now what those individuals will do, those individuals will now start applying their mind. It is more of a entrepreneurial mindset which then becomes an important factor while functioning into their own respective roles. So everything has to be ROI driven. Every dollar should have a value generated out of it. So finance transformation, represents an opportunity to, reimagine the work of, finance. In part, this will definitely be a cultural shift, but by moving the focus, of finance professionals away from that manual processing and towards, the value added reporting and analysis, these important mindset change will definitely make wonders and will definitely ensure that the growth of that individual goes to another level where they can obviously think of becoming and going up the ladder in the hierarchy and becoming a CFO and other top levels in the organization or in any other organization because of this cultural shift.
Great, no, thanks, Vijay. And I think people probably is the most important part of this equation. So we have a couple of minutes. Maybe Raghavendra, you want to come in and talk about the people upskilling in IBM?
Yeah, sure. See, Harpreet, I spoke about the tools, right? But tools are one part of whatever analysis we do. There is a people side of it also, because tools can give inputs, but people have to interpret it. And for that, we need to train them to how to look at it, what are they expected to do, etc., etc. Fortunately, we have had a learning program in IBM, 40-hour mandatory learning, then you become a super learner, etc., etc. And we have luckily tools also in IBM which profile your interest and highlight or spotlight the education that you need to do to reach your aspiration level. So for example, you want to be say RPA or a data scientist example, who will be more involved in tool development. It will show you courses that you are supposed to do to reach that aspiration, right? So we have, and there are a lot of courses that IBM has on Coursera, on even in our tools, which actually make you some kind of data scientist, and the finance professional is more equipped to look at the outputs of the tool, how to use the outputs of the tool, etc., etc. And also, just to just a 1 minute on what we have done with the client, right? This a very interesting one. uh, a trade finance is very complicated. A lot of my CFO seniors here would know how trade finance for banking is very complicated, from the point that there are a lot of documentation that goes, and internal control in a government organization is absolute best, right? He will not sign you on any paper unless he sees that 5 set of papers, and putting together the 5 or 10 set of papers is a manual huge task. So we have actually had a tool where the tool actually puts those 5 set of papers together, indexes it, runs a OCR, runs a NLP, and then gives the provider or the user saying, okay, these are the tools, please see it. And the tool also analyzes and tells, okay, this is a set of customers in this particular region, always default on these set of papers. So the user or the person who is actually verifying the paper actually getting data on saying that, okay, for the past 10 customers, they have not given this set of papers. Go look at it in case of this customer, because he comes from this particular region or this particular industry. So that's how we have used education to enable the end user on how to look at the data, and also the tools that support that education that he has got on how to look at the data. And that's how we have done it. I think I was very quick because there is
Yeah,
paucity
no,
of
no,
time, so I was mindful of that.
Harpreet,
Thank you.
Harpreet, and I would like to just add a last bit of it. What, as an employee of an organization, what I want at the end of the day is people discuss me, not
Yeah.
the tools that we have, not anything else. Huh? People should discuss me, what is there for me in this whole journey. I think so that is very important, that especially in the current times, that we handhold them, tell them that we are not going to lose you. We want that you grow in the organization. You put your best efforts. We provide you everything, and I think that is the trait that each one of us as a leader needs to show. More a coaching style and a visionary style. And I think so people should stay, grow, because each one of us has an aspiration. No one comes or works to not grow, I would say, unless
Yeah.
they have some problem. So I think so it's important that we discuss the employee themselves and their growth journey rather than discussing what the company wants. Improve the employees' employability and they will always be learning
Yeah.
good and doing good. Thank
No,
you.
no, absolutely, Sandhya. Sandhya, well said. And I am cognizant of the time. We have to wrap it up. But broadly, I will say, if I sum up our discussion, there are 3 key elements of finance transformation. We spoke about people, and I would put people as the first element. And one of our survey revealed that 80 to 85% of effectiveness improvement can happen if you digitally or otherwise upskill your people and motivate them. The second element we discussed was around process automation, data analytics. I think critical elements of any finance function transformation. And third is performance. Vijay very nicely alluded to it in terms of return on capital employed, in terms of profit center, etc. So I think let me bring this panel discussion to a close. In a physical world, I would have said that we can continue the discussions during the coffee or tea break, but unfortunately, that's not possible in a digital world. But I think the panel members and I would be happy to connect with all of you offline should you have any questions or any matters to discuss. So thank you very much, and let me thank all the panel members, panelists for for their contribution. And over to you, Shikha.
Harpreet, thank you very much. While of course the discussions can continue offline, but that also reminds me of the hard work that we used to do as host, getting all of you people in back into the ballrooms after that tea and coffee break. So, but thank you. Of course, those were memories, and soon let's hope that we can relive them. Thank you, Harpreet, for absolutely stitching the fabulous conversation there. And panelists, a big thank you to you all for that value add that you really brought to the summit. And yes, every penny has to be ROI driven, but it is the people who drive that ROI. So on that note, thank you very much, panel. We would love to hear your experiences, being shared on social media. How did you feel being a part of this discussion using our official hashtag, which is hashtag ETDataCon. Now that would help. And all of you watching us, ladies and gentlemen, I can just give you a quick breather out here. You can hang out at the IBM booth and fill in the feedback forms out there, because what's coming up next is critical and needs your attention. I'll be right back onto the screens. See you in a bit.
Thank you.